Hi, guys. Welcome to Synchro Mystic. I'm Wayne McCroy. This is Richard Willett, and together we're taking apart the narratives that we are handed by this death cult that's in control of our culture right now. How are you today, Richard? Always good to speak to you, my friend.
I'm good, thank you. It's been a few weeks. We managed to get together. It's just life gets in the way. So I'm looking forward to this one. So much has happened that it's even unbelievable. I know we say this every time, but who would have thought we'd be speaking about these things? Charlie Kirk in the theatre of the mind. Now, we're becoming well known for looking at things in a much different way, from a different angle than most. So what was your thoughts when you first saw this? I was actually watching, like I was doing some work live when it happened, and still to this that I've never seen anything most horrific, and I'm not 100% sure the video I saw was the legit video, but at the time, but it's who would have thought this is where we are.
Right. And this is always what happens in between our recordings of these episodes. Like, so much happens on the world stage that it's so much to break down and take apart. When this whole thing rolled out initially, I was skeptical of the main narratives that I saw coming out, and I'm still skeptical of the mainstream narratives that we see coming out, because this had all the hallmarks of a professionally done operation. There's a lot of psychological operations involved in this. Now, am I suggesting that Charlie Kirk didn't really get killed and this was all just stage play? No, I'm not suggesting that at all, but there is a theater of the mind that goes on with any event like this that, in my view, takes beyond human planning to initiate the process they're in, that they've done. So there's deeper levels to this, and there's deeper things going on behind the scenes than what we've been told. And they're never forthright with us as to what the real things that have happened surrounding this event have been. Now, here's the thing. I say all the world is a stage, and I mean that. Certainly, we see this all playing out on the world stage. Now, does that mean there's not actual people who got hurt or anything in this? No, that's not necessarily the case. These people in positions of power, these dark occultists who run things in this world, have made it clear in no uncertain terms that they have no compunction with real people dying to further their agendas. So I'm not suggesting at all that this is a 100% hoaxed event, as many out there would do. They will tell you any big event like this that you see on the world of stage is all just stagecraft, and it's all hoaxed, and it's all just played for the emotional response of people. They're not 100% wrong on that. They do utilize those elements in these types of events, but I do firmly believe that real people do sometimes get hurt or killed in many of these productions that they put on. And like I said, there's an element that's beyond human that plays into this stagecraft. I think it's demonstrable when we begin to take apart the synchromistic cues that we see with all of these types of events. It couldn't possibly be all human planning. Now, those people who respond to these things in real time in the mainstream media narratives and stuff like that, they don't give you 100% the facts of what's gone on. And in fact, oftentimes they've been caught covering up certain things and certain details about stuff. So we're handed, in any event like this, you're handed a mainstream narrative as to what happened, and then you're handed an alternative counter narrative with all of these things. This is all part of the sophisticated type of psychological operations that go on with this. So they will hand you, here's the mainstream narrative. This is what the mainstream says happens. This is the accepted fact of officialdom from those people who decide what's true and what's false. They hand you that, and there's holes in the details, and many people begin to question, what's up with this? This doesn't align and make sense. So then they carefully craft a counter argument to that, or a counter narrative to that, that they've been circulating largely in the alternative media, the truth movement, the conspiracy culture, whatever you want to call this. And they give you a secondary narrative, which is also just as untrue as the main narrative that they hand you. And this creates confusion. And this is all done on purpose. They want to muddy the waters. So we see all of that present in this Charlie Kirk event, and we're going to have to break down some of the details that will tell you that it's a sophisticated occult operation that's been going on with this. And we'll get to that, but I want to hear more of your thoughts as to what you found about all of this, Richard.
Absolutely. In the Hermetic principles and the alchemical principles, one of the seven, it's always the seven, which is completion for this cult. One of them is polarities, and the law of correspondence is another one. You've written about these in your books, in your first book, Alchemical Tech Revolution. And these are really important. This is the way they go. So the polarities that you've just talked about there, they've set down the polarities, which what does that do? That's the Yakin and Boaz. That's the doorway. They've set the polarities of the doorway, the left, the right, the up, the down. The correspondence of what you've got to walk through. They're controlling both sides of it. So I obviously the original one is this young boy did it. It's Tyler Robinson. I think you'd be hard pressed to believe that that was the only thing going on there, but maybe there's some Mancunian candidate going on there, something like that. So there's that element. And then you have Israel did it, which was the other one. And I'm not sure if that's what you meant by the alternative media, but that was fed into the alternative media. Much of us appalled by what the IDF are doing and Israel are doing, and he was speaking out against Israel. That would feed in, and that kind of pulls on your initial, that sounds right to me. I'd like to believe that because none of us are very happy with what Israel are doing. But then again, as you say, if you play this game long enough, you realize that that's just pulling on your emotions. What I found out was there's a lot deeper levels of this that go well beyond, and they were dropping hints left, right, and center of what's going on in coded ways. So I'll just put out there what I have found, Wayne, and then you then see what you think of this and what you think of this. Obviously, the first thing that came to mind, Cash Patel was going 33. It took us 33 hours to solve this. Quite blooming clear that that's
Right?
the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, which is absolutely rampant in Washington, D.C. That's who set up Washington, D.C. for the Black Nobility, for the City of London, which is a corporation, by the way, within a corporation. So, guys, if you don't know, the City of London is a sovereign state, the same as Washington, D.C., and the same as the Vatican. All three of them are three arms, really, of the same corporation. It's called the Temple Crown Corporation. That's what they call it, because it all goes through the Temple Bar in London. I'm not saying that's where the hub of control is, because I actually believe it's the Vatican to a certain degree. Again, this all mixes around. But the Temple Bar in London is an actual Knights Templar temple that's still there today, where everything in the law world and financial mostly goes through Temple Bar. So this gets into the Knights Templar and Temple Mount and Solomon's Temple. We're going really deep with this. So having said that, one of the things I found out was that Erica, she was a model, pretty girl. She is a Jesuit educated, same as Donald Trump, Jesuit educated, same as Dr. Fauci, same as Wilbur Ross for the Rothschilds, Jesuit educated. The Jesuits are secret society, the secret service, the Mancunian candidates of the Vatican. So she's been trained by then. I'm not saying she was involved. I'm not, but she was trained there. But the other big one for me was the Knights of Malta style pendant that she's seen wearing quite a few times. Now, the Knights of Malta connect in and are run by, from some of my research, a family called the Bourbon Two Sicilies. We're looking at the Black Nobility bloodline. So the Bourbon Two Sicilies, they oversee, and it's Prince Carlo, the Duke of Castro, who's the head of the Bourbon Two Sicilies, a couple of Knights Templar, Knights of Malta, sorry, they're all connected anyway, affiliated groups. The first one's called the Royal Order of St. Francis the First, and the other one is called what's the other one? Can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but the Royal Order of St. Francis the First is the one that we're looking at. That's run by them. And the reason why is because the pendant she's looking at really does look like their pendant. So Prince Carlo, Duke of Castro, runs the Royal Order of St. Francis I. They also allegedly, according to someone who did Amy, Amy WTF, she did use her real name after that, does some great research into this and said, but her conclusion was that the Bourbon Two Sicilies run most of the crime syndicates in Florida. Florida is where Mar-a-Lago is. And then Bourbon Two Sicilies, Prince Carlo and his two daughters and his wife were seen and pictured with Donald Trump a few years back at Mar-a-Lago. We're talking about the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, the Vatican, the Jesuits. That sphere, I think, are deeply involved in. We all know that Erica is is Catholic. So I don't know what you think of that, but that to me is where this is leading, and that's where these two completely distractions are not looking at all. This has a Jesuit feel to this to me.
And I would concur. I think that my assessment of what's going on is at the highest, most levels of the power structure in this world, there's infighting currently going on as to who gets to call the shots and set policy. And we've explored this in the past on this show, Richard.
Mhm.
This breaks down to the two archetypes present at the topmost levels of these secret society groups. You have the Jesuit order and the Freemasons. And this is a battle back and forth of power grabs between these two different factions within the same overall group. And here's the thing, they have the same end goals in mind. It's just they differ on how to get there in their opinions. And this is what happens. So you have infighting at these topmost levels. And a lot of times this translates into operations like what we saw just happen here. And it's all about who's getting to call the shots with policy. And they differ in their opinion on how to get things done. And we see that struggle back and forth. And in the end, it's essentially all the same things George Orwell talked about. He described the future as a boot stomping on your neck for eternity. But here's the big kicker. To these people in charge, it doesn't matter to them if it's a left boot or a right boot stomping on your neck. They don't care. So right now it seems like they've pivoted towards the right boot, being the boot to suppress on your neck for eternity. So this is kind of what's going on at the highest, most echelons with this stuff. It's a type of infighting, but there's some very real occult principles involved with this as well. And we could see all that in the synchromystic metadata, as you pointed out. And a lot of people are pointing out the number 33. It took them 33 hours before they arrested this suspect in Charlie Kirk's shooting. And of course, this suspect, Tyler Robinson, is 22 years old. There's your
Mm.
master builder number. So this is all encoded in there. But we'll take it a step deeper because I haven't heard anybody else talking about this, Richard. Um, do me a favor. Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of on air work to do right now in real time just to show this is not me making stuff up. I want you to look up what is the Tyler in Freemasonry. There's an office called the Tyler in Freemasonry.
Okay, that's just new to me. This is why I love doing this show. I'm going to go away and I've got loads more to do and look into. What is Tyler? As in, so in Freemasonry, the Tyler, and it is spelt the same, Tyler, is the lodge's appointed outer guard responsible for guarding the lodge door with a drawn sword, ensuring only qualified masons enter and preventing unqualified persons from disturbing the meeting. They are the bouncers by the looks of it. They are the first point of contact for visitors and handle the initial vetting of Masonic credentials. The position is symbolic, representing spiritual and moral boundaries, and the Tyler's sword is sometimes linked to the flaming sword that guarded the tree of life. How interesting.
They're the gatekeeper. These are literally the
Yes.
gatekeepers of Freemasonry, the Tyler. Now, here, I'm going to give you another little homework assignment here. In the tarot, there is a corresponding card to the Tyler. It's called the Page of Swords. I want you to look up what is the reverse meaning of the Page of Swords tarot card for me, please. And then we'll begin to take more of this apart. Like I said, I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. They
No.
always point out the numbers because the numbers are always obvious. You see these numbers crop up over and over again in these types of world events. And there's a reason for that because it is symbology. So let me know when you have that on the
There
screen.
you go. So what
Oh, you cut out on me, Richard.
the likes of what the information. Sorry.
You there? Okay.
There you go. Yeah, I think I'm there. Right, I can't find it right off the top of the bat for I think I just it's a long what is the reverse meaning of the tarot of the flaming sword? Would that get me in the
The
right place?
page of swords. It's the name of the card.
Oh,
reversed meaning of the Page of Swords tarot card, and you
Page
can
of
bring up a
Swords.
picture of it because this corresponds one to one with the Tyler in the Freemasonic
Okay, the reverse
fraternities.
meaning of the Page of Swords signifies confusion, lack of mental clarity, information overload, or immaturity, leading to thoughtless words, gossip, anxiety, and overthinking. It can also suggest avoiding the truth, a shaky defense, or feeling paranoid and insecure. It's chaos.
Exactly. And what are they known for? They're known for order out of chaos. That is
Mhm.
their ultimate goal with all of this. So they literally tell you what's going on in the names of the individuals involved. Now, I'll save you a little bit of time. I was going to have you go through and do the searches on the computer there to do this, but people are free to go and do this experiment for themselves. So his name, the name of the alleged assassin is Tyler Robinson. He's the name Tyler literally is the gatekeeper of Freemasonry. Robinson is the son of Robin. Robin is a derivative of Robert. It's the diminutive version of Robert. Robert means bright and famous. So the bright famous Tyler or gatekeeper for the Freemasonic order. So that's the position, the role on the world stage that this guy is playing in the alchemical theater of the mind. Now let's break down the name Charlie Kirk. Charlie is a derivative of Charles. Do you know what Charles means in its etymology, Richard? I'll save you a little time. I was going to have you look this up, but it means free man.
Right.
And if you're familiar with the name Kirk, you might know that this is also derived from the same Celtic root word for church. So it's the free man and the church together. So it's the battle between the Freemasons and the church representing the Jesuits. And this is all encoded just in the names of the individuals involved. And this is why I say in this world stage, this stagecraft that's being played on humanity, there's a beyond human intelligence involved with the setup of all of this stuff. Because all of these things play out in real time on the world stage, much like we see here. And it's all the language of symbology. And if you don't know it, you're not going to pick up on it. And most
Mm,
people don't. Although they've become a lot more familiar because of the work of other researchers like us through the years, that you'll oftentimes notice numbers, the same numbers like the 33, the 22 crop up in these events all the time. It's another calling card for these people. But it goes deeper than that. And if you have eyes to see, you could read the synchromystic metadata involved with this. So it's all about gatekeeping the information and keeping confusion and chaos in order to institute order out of that chaos. And what does that look like? Well, right now, that looks like they're stomping down the boot of censorship really hard here in America. They've shut down Jimmy Kimmel now, as far as because he made some derogatory statement or something about Trump involving Charlie Kirk. And if you listen to what he said, it's not really that offensive. But now, all of a sudden, the left here in America, the progressives, the liberal side of things are all up in arms about freedom of speech, whereas they had no compunction in years past about shutting up people like you and I in the alternative media and uh, derailing guys like Alex Jones with massive lawsuits and stuff about fake information and stuff like that. And now they're
mm,
they're crying that that Jimmy Kimmel's being canceled. They instituted this cancel culture. They constructed a mental health crisis in America, and we're seeing the ramifications of that. And now they're crying that it's affecting them. And it's the same thing that went on in Nazi Germany. You'll hear people describe that like, I didn't say anything when they came for my neighbor, and I didn't
yeah.
say anything when they came for the guy down the street. But when they finally came for me, it was too late because there was no one else to tell that what was going on here. It's the same thing going on here. And you have people actually cheering on this type of censorship, firing people from their jobs for not towing the party line and reinforcing the mainstream narrative and saying things about how they really feel about something. And we have a right to free speech. We should be able to freely express ourselves. Now, are people going to say things that are offensive and derogatory? Yeah. But that needs to be protected too, because if they don't have the right to say what they want to say, then I don't have the right to say what I want to say. You see how this works? It's like shooting yourself in the foot when you're trying to
Mm,
shut somebody up like this. And they spent so long shutting up the other side and trying to shut down the truth from getting to people, that now it's actually affecting them in their entertainment culture, and they don't like it. And it's something that they've not been vocal about in the past, and now all of a sudden it matters to them, but it's too late because they justified it in the past, shutting down free speech and shutting down people who tried to warn people about COVID shots and stuff like that. People like me who've been shadow banned and, you know, shut up in all kinds of different ways, deplatformed, all of this stuff because we were trying to tell people pertinent information and it didn't align with the mainstream narrative. So they shut us up and they shut us down and they gave fact checkers and all of this stuff. And now all of that cancel culture movement is coming home to roost and it's affecting the mainstream now. Now they can't control the narrative anymore because it's been turned on its head at them, because now you have the opposite polarity in charge of the country as what was there before. So now they're using the right wing to institute these things rather than the left wing. And it doesn't matter. It's wrong on either side of the aisle, but they keep us infighting with these two polarities and thinking somehow or another that my side's right, that side's wrong. It's not the case. They don't want people to use critical thinking skills. They don't want people to formulate their own opinions. They don't want people to be able to discern for themselves. They just want to categorize you in one box or the other to make you more easy to control. So that's essentially what we've seen going on now for the longest time as a response to this whole Charlie Kirk thing. Now, I think it's terrible that some people are actually cheering on that this guy died. That's not right in my view. I think we need to be a little more respectful and savvy about that kind of thing. Even if you think it is a staged event, you don't want to be cheering on something like that because all that does is encourage other people to do similar things. And we see that copycat effect that does go on with these types of events. We see what has happened now as a response to this whole Charlie Kirk thing. So they're really ramping up this notion of not only censorship in a big way, especially on social media, and the thought police and all of those things that go along with that. They're also talking openly about a police state, and we see Trump has rolled out and instituted the National Guard in Washington D.C. and he deployed them. I think it was to somewhere, was it Memphis or Nashville in Tennessee? But he was talking about rolling them
Mm.
out to Chicago as well. But he's got a lot of pushback for that. So they're looking at police state, censorship, artificial intelligence control grid, all of these things. And in the meantime, in the background, you have Larry Ellison now openly declaring that they need to use an artificial intelligence. Where's this article? I had this article here. Let me see if I can find it. It's just a headline. Uh, I'll read you the headline, and that's all you should need to really formulate an opinion about this. At any rate, I can't find it right now, but Larry Ellison was saying that they will need to use a new artificial intelligence surveillance system to keep people acting on their best behavior. Larry
Oh,
Ellison, of course, is a major figure in Trump's Stargate proposal, his AI proposal. So all of these things are always coming to fruition right now, going on quietly in the background while this main story has been unleashed upon the world. And also, I don't know if you were aware of this, Richard, this past week, Palantir's very own Peter Thiel gave a four-part lecture series on the Antichrist.
did
I
he
kid
actually
you
do
not.
it? 'Cause I didn't. I know he was going to do it. I think we did
Yep.
talk about this last time. It actually went ahead. I've written about this in the book I'm writing. Yeah, I knew he was doing it. I didn't know if it actually went ahead or not. But that, yeah, incredible,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that was this past week, 4 days this past week, and I'm waiting to see if they actually have the transcripts or anything available online after the fact now. But as of this week, he was giving that lecture series to sold out shows with that. And why is Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist? Like, you have to ask these questions. It's kind of creepy and telling in a lot of ways what these people are focused on. They are focused on this occult information. And as much as I always say it, and I sound like a broken record, as much as I don't want it to be the case, it always, always, always ties back to the occult every time with all of this stuff, with all these major world events, with all of the things that they're unleashing on humanity in at large here. So we always see it tied back to that. And of course, Peter Thiel with his Palantir, they have a lot of sway and influence into this setting up of this new artificial intelligence control grid that they want to put in place. And I think we may have talked about this in the past. I know I've done episodes of the Alchemical Tech Revolution on this, on Palantir's role and things, and how they had already instituted policies in the New Orleans Police Department back in 2012, where they were using this predictive crime uh, tool in order to stave off any type of criminal activity pre-crime. So you're talking about Minority Report on steroids. They already did this. Palantir did this back then without the public's knowledge or consent to it. And they've instituted some of these technologies in their military applications moving forward. And these are the same people that right now are in bed with this government system that we have right now, these policy think tank groups. All of these are in bed with the Trump regime at this point. And of course, it doesn't matter what regime's in place, whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. They're all on the same team. They just create this illusion that there's a difference between them. There's really not. The only difference is, how do they institute the policies to get to the goals they want? They may have a little disagreement as to what's the best case scenario for getting there, but that's the only place they differ in their opinion. They're still going to roll out these same agendas. It's just how quickly or how slowly will they do so, and how incremental will the process be? Do they want to traumatize you all at once and hit you with it all right now and make a massive change right now? Or do they want to incrementally, over the course of time, slowly roll these things in? It seems the slow rollout has always worked best for these people, but they're starting to panic now because they see their window of opportunity really diminishing at this point. So now they're trying to push things all the faster here. And I think we're seeing a reflection of that in mainstream culture right now. And I think that's what we're viewing going on as a response to this catalyzing event that was the Charlie Kirk assassination. They always use events like this to usher in these types of policy changes. And of course, these things always align with the timing of the sky clock. You'll notice Charlie Kirk was murdered on September 10th, the eve of 9/11. But there was also a very important planetary conjunction happening that day, Richard, in case you weren't aware of that. I'll bring up the information here because I was looking at that as soon as that happened to see what was going on astrologically with that event, because they always time these things in those ways to leverage those energies against the masses. So let me see if I can find that. I know I have all of that here. I saved all kinds of notes about this stuff just to kind of reference back to. Here it is. So on September 10th, the significant planetary alignments, there was a rare all planet alignment with Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune all visible in the pre dawn sky. Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter were in Cancer, while Mars was in Libra, and Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were in Pisces, Gemini, and Aries, respectively. So you could see the 5 planets with the naked eye, but binoculars were needed to see Uranus and Neptune. And the positions that these planets were aligned in during that time on that day, the sun was in Leo, the moon was in Aries, Mercury was in Cancer, Venus was in Cancer, Mars was in Libra, Jupiter was also in Cancer. So you have 3 major planets in Cancer at that time. Saturn was in Pisces and it was retrograde. Uranus was in Gemini in retrograde, and Neptune was in Aries in retrograde. Now that sounds like absolute hokum and nonsense to most people out there. But if you find somebody who's well versed in astrology and knows what those conjunctions mean and what that stuff means, what the energies at play are, you will find that this was a major event. And this was a window of opportunity for transformative change on the culture at large. I mean, you're talking about every planet visible in the night sky at that time. So they leverage these energies and these types of events in that way. And if you look into what some of the catalyzing energies involved there are, you see it's about transformation, it's about change, it's about clarity, and it's about confusion in the inverted process. So that's what they do all the time with this, is they will invert these energies and use the reverse energy. That's why I pointed out what's the reverse meaning in the tarot? You see, they have the inherent main meaning, and there's always an inverse meaning when you're reading the tarot. And it all depends upon what type of energies are prevalent at the time and being applied to that. And they always apply the inversion principle because that's the true definition of Satanism, the
Mhm.
inversion principle. They use it all the time. So they took these planetary energies and they inverted them and used them with this negative application to society in order to instantiate the changes that they want. And we see how this event is still resonating. It's been 10 days now. Today's like day 10 or 11 after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And there's still people talking about it. It's still a catalyzing event. And there's still new details beginning to emerge. And there's still people questioning it. And it's all about the creation of this confusion, as was suggested when we read the tarot meaning involved with that. With the Tyler, the guy with the sword, the page of swords in the tarot, the inverse meaning. So you see how these energies are applied. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the language of symbology, when I'm talking about synchromystic metadata, when I'm talking about the energies inherent in the information field, the zeitgeist. This is what's out there. And this is what affects the unconscious human mind. And most people don't recognize it because it is an archetypal type energy and it is being leveraged against you to change your behavior ultimately. And if you're unaware of these energies and unaware of what the symbols mean, well, then it has all the more effect on you for those controllers of this world who will use it to manipulate you. And we see people manipulated left and right. But when you recognize it for what it is, it doesn't affect you as heavily. So
Mm.
we could look at this whole thing, this whole Charlie Kirk assassination, and all the players on the stage and recognize it as the alchemical theater of the mind in order to bring transformative change into this world that the controllers want. And they want it to look a certain way. But here's the good news: we don't have to let it represent us in that certain way. We can apply our own thought processes to it. We could recognize it for what it is, and we could bring about a better outcome for ourselves and for humanity at large. We have the power to do that if we could break free of the mind control, because that's what this ultimately is. That's why they want you divided online. They want you to fight over, well, Charlie Kirk was a good guy and he made a huge difference, and it's despicable for people to be mocking that or to say negative things about him. So now we need to instantiate a national holiday for Charlie Kirk, which, by the way, they're doing. And that's another thing. And we have to honor this guy and stuff like that. So you have that fight on one side, and on the other side, you have people that are actually cheering this on and saying he deserved it, which also isn't right. But see, they divide you in these two camps, and that's the only two responses that they're really amplifying online. You'll notice that. So there's not any type of middle ground that's being represented out there. And of course, that's all part and parcel of this. Anyway, apologies, folks. We're having some difficulties recording this. I don't think there's the powers that be out there are really happy with this conversation, but I think it's important that we utilize this platform to bring awareness to these things. So, Richard, I'm hoping you could get back on here again. I notice your computer crashed again in the middle of this recording. So, I'm hoping we don't lose any of this. I don't think we will because it's still recording. And therefore, we should be good to present this. So, I don't know how much of this we're going to edit out, but this is the real deal, folks. I mean, we're having a difficult time even talking about these things and putting it out there. And this is pre-recorded. It isn't going live where they could shut us down 100%. But I find it kind of strange that we're having such technical problems here. But at any rate, what we're talking about with all of this is very important because they do utilize these energies that most people are largely unaware even exist in order to bring these things into manifestation. Okay. Richard, I see you're back now.
Well,
That was
it's the computer's gone as well again, so I'm hoping that carried on recording there. I'm pretty sure it did.
it should. I should be able to access it on my end if you can't get it on yours.
I will be able
Because
to. I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, because the program has stayed open the whole time and has been
yeah,
recording. And I kind of explained when you cut out there again that we were having difficulty recording this. So I think there's some folks out there maybe that don't want this information out there. But this is the
Yeah, I
true
wouldn't be
nature of what's
surprised.
going on.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't be
I
surprised.
just, yeah, I mean, go ahead and I want to hear your thoughts as to what we were just unpacking here.
Well, we take it back to the start, and as you're saying that there's two elements here, which I find fascinating. You've got the Jesuit element, and you've got the Freemasonic element. There's symbology all over this. I'll add to this symbology with this lady. Her name is Kat Kerr. She's self-proclaimed prophetess, and she claims she was taken to heaven to watch God present Charlie Kirk with a special tunic and a quiver containing 1,000 arrows of light. Where have we heard that before? 1,000 sparks, flames, arrows of light. George
I,
H.W. Bush most famously used that, saying 1,000 points of light. And this is actually from a book, but most famously come from him. So Bush reprised the phrase near the end of his speech. He said it twice, and affirming he would keep America moving forward, always forward, for a better America, for an endless enduring dream, and 1,000 points of light. This 1,000 points of light. Now, remember George H.W. Bush, where did he come from? What secret society he was in? Yale, Skull and Bones, along with his son. J.D. Vance, where did
and
he
his
come
father.
from? And his father. Yep. Oh, yes, Prescott. Yep.
Yep.
And so where J.D. Vance, where did he come from? And where did Peter Thiel find J.D. Vance? Yale Law School, just across the road. He would have been, in my opinion, in on the Skull and Bone stuff. And as soon as Charlie's taken out, who do they put in there? They put in J.D. Vance to take over his show. This is what they always do. So you've got a Freemasonic element there. You've also got a Jesuit element and a Knights Templar element. This goes really, really deep into that. And it's beyond religions, it's beyond the Catholic Church in that sense, because what we're really looking at is what I would call the Church of Babylon that's infiltrated what was originally Rome and the pagan religions there, and used that to basically hijack that system. So we're not really talking about what you would see as a Catholic faith or a Catholic church or a Christian faith. They are hijacking it, the same as Sabbateans do with the Chabad lot. So what you've got is someone like Donald Trump, who also was Jesuit educated. You've got him on one side with these Chabad guys that bring along what I wrote about this week is called restorative messianism. They want to go back to the old golden age and bring all of those Noahide laws through. And then on the other hand, you have J.D. Vance, you have Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, that pushing something called utopian messianism. That is your technocracy. And together they actually complement each other into an old world, new world order, is what I call it. Because the old is the new and it's repetitive. So actually, they've done the polarities there between Donald Trump is bringing in these old Noahide laws, which will be put on you because of why? Your everything app, your X app, and also your online speech will go towards your point score. Now, what I've come up with, and I'd like to get your take on this. This is all pushing towards that, by the way. So this speech thing is all pushing towards that. I think they're going to use, or could use the seven Noahide laws as the laws that your app will be set to. But I also believe that they might use the Kabbalah tree of life, the 10 Sephirot, which are kind of like your personality traits, so it's courage, wisdom, and all these things. And you'll get a score out of 7 on each one, which will total up to your final score. I wouldn't be surprised if they use a system like that, because they're all about systems and rituals and doing things in an almost autistic way. They are very much reptilian. David will call it reptilian mind. So I'm coming up with all these things. I'm thinking this is how they're going to implement this stuff. And when you look at the Charlie Kirk thing, it's fascinating what you say about him being caught between these two. I mean, I believe he's dead and he's a victim of this. As you say, the metadata goes beyond this place, and perhaps we're chosen for certain roles when we come in here. Thus, his name was Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson. This could be set before you even come into this movie, this game, whatever we're doing here. Goes far beyond what we understand. And these are alchemists that understand the nature of reality. So they're playing with these things. And what Wayne's an absolute expert doing, and better than anyone I've found out there in doing this, is explaining this metadata. And basically, it's explaining the language, the programming coding of the nature of reality. They know this stuff. They know this. It's numerology, it's symbology, it's sound sight, it's the visible light spectrum, which is the rainbow that we're trapped under with a pot of gold, which is Saturn at the end. I mean, I point this one out. I had the guy coming around to paint my kitchen last week. I like to, he's really interested in this stuff. And he asked me questions. And I said, well, what do you think? This was the most obvious one, because you got to find some ground to be able to explain it. Well, what was Twitter called? Sorry, what was X called before Twitter? I'm sorry, X called before it was called X. It was called Twitter. So what was the symbol? It was the bluebird. So what flew over the rainbow? The bluebird. To where? To the pot of gold, which is Saturn, which is X. And it's just he looked at me like shocked. I was like, because they're telling you what they're doing. You've just got to be able to read it. And I'm not as an expert as Wayne reading this, but this stuff becomes so apparent. So this lady talking about Charlie dying and then being he was given a special tunic and a quiver containing 1,000 arrows of light, which is an Illuminati symbol, in my opinion. What's your take on that? Her using that symbology? Surely she knows what she's talking about.
Well, the 1,000 points of light, as referenced by George Bush and, of course, others, this harkens back to the idea of the philosopher's stone when you look at it from the old alchemical context. And how Manly P. Hall describes this is it's the rough, unhewn stone that is the human experience or the human being before it becomes the philosopher's stone. It's a rough, unhewn stone, but through your working towards the great work and your application of all of the occult sciences and stuff in your contribution to the great work, you begin to craft this stone in much the same way as a jeweler cuts a diamond, and you cut these different facets onto the stone, and they become a little facet on the stone to the point where you get to the 1,000 points of light. So now you are the perfectly crafted stone, the philosopher's stone, according to Manly P. Hall. And he wrote this in a book called The Initiates of the Flame. And you can find a copy of this for free online on Internet Archive. Read it, understand it. He's got pictures in there too that correspond to what he's talking about. This is what the 1,000 points of light is referencing. It's the philosopher's stone. It's the same old language being used here. So this woman who's ostensibly describing this in a slightly different way, anybody who's well versed in occult philosophy will understand what's being referenced there. That Charlie became the finely polished stone. He was a rough-hewn stone, but now he's been perfected and has ascended. He's received his apotheosis. That's what this represents. He's become the philosopher's stone. He's got his immortality. He's achieved his purpose with the great work. And he's become one of these 1,000 points of light, or a star in the heavens. And this is another belief system throughout all of these Illuminati folks and stuff like that. The Illuminati folks, this is a catch-all term these days, but there is a real group called the Illuminati that has existed and still exists, although oftentimes they go by different names. And this is the inner circle within the inner circle at the topmost levels of all these other secret society groups. These are the people that call the shots. Okay, they refer to themselves as the Illuminati in some regards, and they've tried to turn it into a joke because that's what they try to do. When people get close to the truth with this, they'll turn it into some type of a nonsensical thing or a joke. So they don't want people to take it seriously. So what they do is they'll send celebrities out there doing this kind of thing with their and they'll call that the Illuminati, and people will laugh at it and think it's silly and nonsensical, and they'll completely ignore it. But there is a literary trail that could connect back to the Illuminati. And of course, mainstream history will tell you that the Illuminati was officially disbanded in 1790 in Bavaria, and that you have Adam Weishaupt was the founder of this. There's a whole mainstream history of what they call the Illuminati, but that was only one very small branch of the Illuminati called the Bavarian
Weishaupt
Illuminati.
was a Jesuit. He was Jesuit.
Exactly.
Educated. Yep.
Yep. And
Just
that you could trace it back further in history, actually, to the Jesuits. Do you know what the original name of the Jesuits was, Richard? They
the
were
only thing
called
I yeah, go on. The only one I know is the Society of Jesus.
no,
Is
they
that
were
right?
called originally when Loyola founded them. He called them Los Alumbrados, which is Spanish that literally means the Illuminati.
Right.
Literally. That's what he called them at first, but the Pope didn't like that name and decided to conscript them for his own purposes. And they changed it to the Society of Jesus, and later it became known as the Jesuits. But they were originally named Los Alumbrados, literally Spanish for the Illuminati. And that's when Loyola founded that
Mm,
group. But of course, it actually predates that too. It's just been called by different names throughout the course of time. And this is one of the things I explore very heavily. I look back into the history of these secret society groups and where the ideas come from, what the original idea was supposed to be, and how they've inverted the intention of it and turned it on its head in modern occultism. And this is what's been brought forward today. And this is what these people in positions of power in this place are doing and using to instantiate controls over the people. So they leverage these principles against us. They've known about it for a long time, but I think we veered off topic a little bit. But certainly, this symbol that the lady was talking about with the 1,000 arrows of light, it's the same thing. It's the 1,000 points of light. It's the philosopher's stone. It's the ascension of Charlie Kirk into the heavens and his apotheosis. That's what it's speaking of. So now he will be reflected in the sky as a star in the heavens. That's according to some of the belief systems that they espouse in some of these secret society
mm,
groups. And of course, some of that's symbolic, and some of it people interpret literally as well. There's something more to the influence and the power of the stars and these bodies in the heavens as far as their energetic principles and how they affect us here on Earth. That's important there as well. So, anyway, that's a mouthful. I want to hear more of what you have to say about it.
Well, what would be really interesting, I believe his memorial soon, is if they with JFK, with Diana, where they use the eternal flame. And I wonder if you keep an eye out, guys, if they use the eternal flame in some way to memorialize Charlie, because that obviously would be an Illuminati kind of Freemasonic nod and a wink there. So we would see that basically they're saying, look, we did it. We all had a hand in it anyway. And I think this is really important to say when they try and pin it on one, they're full of shit, quite frankly, because they're all in on it together. And that doesn't mean every single person in these societies was in on it together. They, at the very peak, they do intertwine. So you can't say it was Israel. You can't just say it's the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, because these are untrustworthy people working in an untrustworthy situation who backstab each other. I mean, they take blood oaths. The Jesuits take a blood oath where they swear if they leak any of this that they will basically kill each other. And then the Freemasons do the same, cutting the breasts and all the stuff like this. Of it's and the knife to the throat. It's all in their symbology. They know what they're getting into. Now, am I saying Charlie was involved with these guys? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if some way he was. That being that he got to the level he's got. I certainly think there's cause to consider that Erica is absolutely with the Knights of Malta, with the Knights Templar. Well, Knights of Malta, Knights Templar, same thing, but different but the same. Again, they cross over. Knights of Malta, these Bourbon to Sicily families. We're looking at these ancient bloodlines that people believe have died out. They have not died out. They've gone into politics. They've gone into the black suits of things. They've gone into even the blue suit collar work. They're everywhere, but they won't tell you who they are. They're that business that keeps open that you have no idea how it keeps open because it doesn't ever sell anything. There's a reason. There's a whole theater of the mind and the world around us. So I'd like to get your kind of concept on it because you mentioned at the start, and maybe clear this up for the listeners, is that there's the Jesuits and there's the Freemasons here. And obviously, they're being pulled by an overall hierarchy. I would say that's probably the Black Nobility bloodlines. That it's like the Bourbons to Sicily. Some researchers say that they control the Jesuits and the Knights Templar and some other orders that Erica may be involved with. But they're just one of many of these Black Nobility bloodlines, and certainly not the type. You've got Orsini, Palavancini, all of these bloodlines, and probably ones I've never even heard of. This goes into that depth, that dark depth, doesn't it? So why is when you've got these Freemasons playing it out with the Jesuits here, what is going on in that issue there? Because you've got someone like Trump who clearly is linked in with the Freemasons, but also Jesuit educated as well.
It's hard to tell exactly what goes on at these highest, most like levels of the power structure here, but certainly you have these Black Nobility family bloodlines and stuff involved in that, and they are deeply entrenched in all these various secret society groups. And I suspect the real names that are making the decisions, we probably don't even really know on the public stage. They do give us certain family names that we are familiar with, and we can see and trace some of that, but the names have changed through the years in the course of time. So they've actually been able to put themselves into different positions in different countries and businesses and stuff around the world unnoticed because they're not necessarily called the Medicis. They may have
Mm,
changed their name. I mean, they might be like, I don't know, say Robinson or something like that. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know
yeah.
if there's any connection there or not. But they've changed their names, they've intermarried, but the bloodline's still there. And a lot of these people are obsessed with the bloodline thing and they trace that back a long way. So they do have infiltration into various levels of society. And I suspect, like I said, I think there's a beyond human intelligence that guides and directs a lot of this stuff. So they don't necessarily have direct communication with, say, this particular human being, this dark occultist at the top of the power structure that gives them a direct order. Maybe there's a spiritual influence that kind of whispers in their ear and causes them to do certain things or play a certain part on the world stage. All of this, once again, is something that kind of crosses the bounds of what our understanding in our finite human reasoning can really get a grip of. I think it goes deeper. I think there are other forces, intelligences, entities involved with the
Mm.
crafting of this stagecraft upon the world stage, and they steer and guide and direct things in certain ways from behind the veil. And
I
there are
completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I'll just add to that is that straight away we're looking at, so guys, if you don't think that that could be true, look at what we can actually see. The visible light spectrum is tiny, and that's the rainbow. That's literally what the rainbow. Then beyond that is electromagnetic spectrum, and beyond that they call it dark matter because they don't really know what to do with it. And that could all be within a system itself. But just within the visible light spectrum itself, I believe we were able to at one point see beyond that for the pineal gland, and that was shut down. Maybe the floods in some way an allegory to that of flooding the pineal gland. But we were there's enough in the biblical text, and I'm not a religious person, but there's quite clearly a story arc and, for want of a better word, narrative in there that's true. There's an element, again, grain of truth in all of that. And I think we've been shut down to not able to see these beings that we were able to see before. And I think it's a genuine it would be a genuine understanding to think that these bloodlines can. They can communicate with them. Now, they probably used to do it through sacrificial rituals, which we know that they love a bit of that for Moloch and all of these guys. But why can they not do it through technology now? So, and I think they're opening up a doorway to bring it in. And actually, I want to put this out there to you because something I kind of figured out a few days ago. I was doing some research with the X logo. So I think you're right. They exist around us, and I think these bloodlines, these black nobility bloodlines at the very top, can communicate, are in communication with these guys consistently to the point where it probably drives them absolutely bloody nuts. Um, but I think people like Elon Musk are telling us this, and I'll tell you why. Because of the Grok logo, which is Binar and Understanding on the Tree of Life, that is a black Saturn hole, which is a type of hole that looks like Saturn, and it's called a black Saturn hole. It's tiny and it's only able to stay open for a fraction of a second because of the tilt. Now I call it the black Saturn tilt. The tilt keeps it open. Now, if you look at the X logo used to be, which is Saturn, by the way, so black Saturn, that used to be a thin stripe across the top. Now look at the updated version. It's much wider, much fatter. Now I believe that he's symbolically telling us they're able to keep the door into another reality, a black Saturn porthole or black Saturn doorway, black hole, they're able to keep that open for longer and wider. And because it's on a tilt, they're able to step through it. And that's what they were telling you with things like the Looking Glass project. It was always a tilt to the machine to be able to get through it. Now, I'm not saying I believe everything they were telling you, but I think you feel good enough and you understand that you can pick out the truths within these stories. So I think the tilt, they're able to get this doorway open a lot more in places like CERN. And I think he was telling us that in the Grok and the X logo and the updated X logo. What do you think of those theories?
I think there may be something to that. I only recently came to the understanding of the existence of what they call this Saturn black hole archetype. And it's fascinating. And I think maybe that is what they're trying to accomplish at CERN, is the opening of this type of a portal per se to let information through. And information, of course, y- could translate into entities, intelligences, forces, things like that as well, maybe stepping through. And I think Elon Musk knows a little more than what he leads on with a lot of this occult stuff. So maybe he is kind of putting it out there. And this is one of the things that they do. They tell you in no uncertain terms what they're doing. They put it out there in symbology all the time. It's just you don't know how to read it. And that's the problem. It's out there in front of your face. They told you, here it is. This is what we're doing. There's that symbol right there. And of course, it has something to do with the internet, doesn't it?
Mm.
It has something to do with the computer, with the AI, with the setup of this metaverse type technology, these Web 3.0 technologies that they're developing now. All of this comes into play. So they're telling you what it is. And you could go back and even look at the inception of Twitter to understand a little more about this. They told you in no uncertain terms what they're doing when they designed and actually initially put out Twitter, long before Elon had anything to do with it. Why was it called Twitter? Well, because the posts that people put on there were called tweets. And of course, you could go back and look at the mainstream narrative as to why they called it Twitter and this and that. But when you understand the occult precept behind it, then you'll understand what it was truly intended for. Tweet. That's the noise that a bird makes, and look at the symbol that they put on there, the bluebird. Well, it's Twitter, the bird tweets. This was referring back to a concept called the language of the birds, also
Mm.
called the green language, also called the phonetic Kabbalah. They were telling you that this messaging platform was intended for esoteric or occult communications from its inception. And that's most certainly what they've done with it. And Elon doubled down on it and told you that the bluebird went over the rainbow to the golden age, and they're ushering in the golden age of X or Saturn now. So 100% you could see all of these things encoded in the reality if you know how to read the language. And they take for granted that you don't know how to read the language. But that's why we're here, isn't it, Richard? We want people to understand the language that they've been communicating with. It's a hidden form of communication that's been going on for a very long time, and it is how they get things done. They speak to each other without the use of words, through these symbols and through these various things. And if you have eyes to see, you could read the metadata out there in the greater zeitgeist and know what's going on. So that's what we're here to do. We're trying to empower people to be able to see more clearly, with more clarity, the things going on in this world and what the intentions are and what the policies and the agendas that they're trying to push are. Because when you could actually see it and read it clearly and know what they're doing, well, we could counter that, can't we?
We absolutely can. And what a lovely way to end the show, because that is exactly what we're trying to do here. And one of the very few, if any, other shows that are actually doing this like this. So, where can they see your work and find out what you're doing?
I could be found at www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. Where could the good people find you, Richard?
You can find me trying to keep the internet going and the computer going before it blows up. But if I'm not doing that, you can find me on iconic.com with all my video content on there. And you can find me on Some May Conspire, or just put Richard Willett into Substack and you'll find me there as well for my content in terms of my writing. But again, you're not going to find this content anywhere else, this data anywhere else. This is how they're speaking to each other. And this is incredibly important because once you start to understand this language, it's like a snowball. You start to understand it quicker and quicker and quicker to the point where you know what they're going to say before they start saying it. And it's almost funny if it wasn't so horrific.
100%. You nailed that right on the head there, Richard. Exactly. Once you start to pick up on it, it snowballs. your understanding increases, and you know what's next. You could already tell what's going to be showing up next. And it is almost comical when you do see it, but it is horrifying for the implications that it brings about for society at large. But when you understand it, it's almost comical because you know what they're going to do before they do it. And you can make accurate predictions that way.
Exactly. So, guys, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for all the support on the YouTube channel. Please share this, subscribe, and we will see you hopefully 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, when we can get away from the kids for long enough to do this, and lock ourselves in these rooms. So, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.